Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Vacheron Constantin or Vacheron Constantin self-winding reference 4500V/00R-B127. It's a pink gold or rose gold overseas with a silver dial and no complications. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history, then go into how it stacks up with the rest of them in its lineup, then talk to you about the case, bezel, dial, bracelet movement, finally try it on and give you my final thoughts. So let's start with the history. Now, the first luxury sports watch came out with Audemars Piguet, the Royal Oak, in 1972, soon followed thereafter by Nautilus, which is made by Patek Philippe 4 years later in 1976. They were both designed by Gerald Genta, the very, very famous designer. And then soon thereafter, I believe Gerard Perregaux came out with their version, their luxury steel version. So you can see that all those watches have a very similar Art Deco sort of retro look to them. And some people think that the Overseas, which you see here, was also designed by the same designer, but it was not. I forgot the name of this designer, but he did not. Gerald Genta did not design these, and this was introduced much later, not in 1970, I believe, somewhere in the 90s or 80s. The Overseas was introduced. So it's Vacheron's answer to the Royal Oak and the Nautilus. Vacheron being a top watchmaker, a lot of people say that the top three watchmakers are Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Vacheron Constantin. So it's hard to argue that, and Vacheron's answer to the luxury sports watch is their Overseas, which is what you see here. Okay, so that's a little bit about the history. Now, if you want a sports watch from Vacheron, then this is what you will get, the Overseas. Okay, that's a little bit about the history. Now let's talk about where this watch stands in the lineup. Now, the Overseas, there's actually something like 30 something different models, almost 40 different models of them. As you can imagine, the Overseas being one of their most desirable lines, one of their watches that often trade above retail, although not all of them, some of them trade above retail. You can see that the most basic Overseas is the time and date only, which is actually what you're looking at here. So the one that's even a little bit more basic than this is just steel. This one being in rose gold, it's the most simple of the complication, or it has the most simple mechanism movement, but it is gold. Now, you know what, some people might say, well, why would you put gold and a simple movement? Well, you know what, some people don't like to have too much going on in the dial, so simplicity is also a big factor in okay. So if you take, for example, like the Royal, if I were to compare this to a Royal Oak or a Nautilus, the Royal Oak would have the extra thin 39 millimeter in rose gold, or even the 41, and you can compare that to this watch. And also you could look at the Nautilus time and date only, which is the 5711 in rose gold. That's also kind of comparable, although not fully. But anyways, the point here being that those watches are time and date only, and they're in rose gold or yellow gold. Or actually, they're all in rose gold. So they're in rose gold, and they do magnificently well. In fact, all those other ones I just referred to, they all sell above retail. So this is actually an opportunity to get a premier watch from an excellent watchmaker, actually even at lower than retail, because the Vacherons Overseas are actually selling below retail, at least at our store at jazztime.com, which, by the way, if you want to buy it, click on the link in the description below. Okay, so that's about where it stands in the lineup. Okay, now from here, of course, you can go on and on in terms of complication and price, etc. The retail price of this is like around 40,000. We're selling it for much less than that on at least as of 23. We're selling it in the 30s, low 30s, that is, on jazztime.com. Okay, now let's move on to the case. So the case here is rose gold. Now Vacheron Patek and Audemars are all doing their golds in rose gold. Now I know AP sometimes does it in yellow, but it's much less common. Why exactly they do it in rose or pink gold, I'm not exactly sure, but I have to say I agree with it. It looks much nicer. All right. Now the thickness here, well, let's not talk about thickness. Let's talk about size, diameter. 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock position, my thumb to my index finger, longest distance across the bezel is 41 millimeters. Now you might be wondering, is that big? Is it small? Well, just to give you an example, a sports watch should be between, on average, 40 millimeters and 44. So that is 41 is at the smaller range of it, but it's still a nice size. In fact, if you ask me, most people with a wrist size of 7.5 inches or smaller are going to do very well with a 41 millimeter watch. So it's nice. Okay, and I might also mention this, since we're talking about the case, is the profile. Now, the profile is very important. Why? Because when you have the watch sitting on your wrist, believe it or not, the height or the profile, the height of the watch is very important. Why? Because it doesn't fit under your suit cuff or your sleeve, and it can be kind of cumbersome if it's too high. So this one, being at 11 millimeters, is a very nice height. And it's not surprising that it's not that thick, because there's not a lot of complications. It's only literally time and date only. So you can't imagine them having a super thick watch for telling simply just the time and date. Now, there are other complications do get thicker, as you can imagine, because they got more complications. Perpetual, or actually the perpetual is pretty darn thin. But okay, anyways, my point here being, it's not thick. It's a good size, good thickness. What I can say, since we're talking about this case though, is even though it is 41, it's actually bigger than 41 would have you to believe. Why? Because traditionally on a watch you have lugs, which is where the bracelet connects to the head of the watch, and you have, in this situation, you don't really have lugs, or if you call these lugs, they're super thick lugs, and that thickness adds to the heft or the weight and the look of the watch. So it actually looks to be like it's thicker and bigger and chunkier watch. So I don't know, that could be a good or bad thing depending on what you think. If you want a smaller watch, I guess it's a bad thing. But at any rate, I'm pointing, you're watching this review, you want to learn about the watch, see if it's for you. So I'm trying to help you out with that. And I'm telling you that from my viewpoint, it's wears bigger than a 41 because these are some really fat lugs. That makes sense? Okay, now let's move on here to the bezel. The bezel here is a very interesting bezel, and I would actually say that the bezel is the hallmark of this watch. Why do I say that for? Well, if you look at any of the other two that I mentioned earlier, their main competitors, which is Audemars Piguet's Royal Oak and the Nautilus, excuse me, then those other two brands have very distinctive bezels that make them recognizable from anywhere. And they kind of have a hint of seaworthiness or something related to the sea in both of those other two situations. This watch being actually called the Overseas, it looks like it has some kind of shipping or boat related theme going through this bezel, and it's a very interesting and recognizable bezel. You got this top part which is high polish, underneath it is brushed, and it has this sort of design here, motif or whatever you call it, and it's just recognizable. And this is easily seen as the Overseas bezel, just like a Nautilus bezel looks like a Nautilus bezel and a Royal Oak looks like a Royal Oak bezel. So I do like the bezel. I think for those who are looking for something that is sporty from a premier watch brand, but that does not look like every other Nautilus or Overseas, this could be a very good option. And that's why this bezel is and by the way, the bezel is the same on all Overseas. So that's one theme that runs throughout. Okay, let's move on to the dial here. Now, the dial here is a silver dial. You're looking at it, and it actually you can also mistaken it for white, because it really does look white or silver, but it's actually a silver dial. Okay, and it goes quite well with this. And there's really no other option anyway, so this is what you get. Okay, that's the dial. Actually, since we're talking about this dial, what else could I say about it? Well, not surprisingly, these hour markers are encased in rose gold to match the watch, so I'm not sure that's a big talking point. The Maltese cross here is also done in rose gold to match the rest of the watch. And it's a very beautiful dial, but there's not a whole lot to say about it, since there's not a lot to say. It's just literally telling you time and date. Okay, now let's move on to the bracelet. Now the bracelet is interesting. I have to say Vacheron did a pretty good job of constructing this bracelet. Why do I say that? Because you can actually swap the bracelet fairly easily between and Vacheron, I believe that they provide the bracelet, different bracelets, and if they don't, that you can also buy them. You can swap between leather, rubber, and even a metal bracelet. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, because in a rubber bracelet, you can wear it to the beach. In a leather bracelet, you can wear it to with a suit. And in a metal bracelet, it can be also in a sporting type atmosphere. Now, it's not difficult to change it. There's a little bit involved. I'm not going to show it here because that's not the purpose of this video. But the point being is that I like the interchangeability of straps. Now, I believe Vacheron was doing this even before other brands were doing it, and making it very easy. I believe, actually, not I believe, I know that Vacheron was doing it, and they had it interchangeable straps without tools. That's the key word. Before any of those other two watchmakers, AP and Patek, meaning that you could change the strap without any tools. Now, why is that important? Well, obviously, let's say you're on vacation somewhere and you're bringing your watch and you're going to go to the I don't know, somewhere to the beach, and you bring on a rubber strap, but in the evening you want to change it to leather one because you're going to go out and you're going to be fancy looking. Well, you can do so without a tool. On the APs, you could not do that before. Now you can. Before you couldn't. And I bet you heard it here first. I bet you Patek Philippe will follow suit soon because they're, for example, Nautilus's, their Moonphase 5726, for example, it has a different strap, but you need a tool and you need to do some work to get it off. And this would be a better way to do it, to do some kind of interchangeable strap thing. And I believe Vacheron was at the forefront of that. So the strap is very nice, okay? And it has a nice buckle to go with it, rose gold buckle, as you see here. Yeah, it's a nice butterfly buckle. Okay, let's move on to the movement here. Now, not surprisingly, Vacheron does an open case back movement where you can see the beauty of this movement. The movement is a reference 5100. It has a thickness of 4.7 millimeters and a size of 30 millimeters. Now, you might be wondering, what does all that mean? Well, just to give you some reference, 30 millimeter movement is the right size for 41 millimeter. I've seen them on APs on the older models, smaller, like 26. They're just way too small. 40 millimeters is a good size, and as you can see, they do a nice gold rotor. And not only do they do a gold rotor, they actually put the gold rotor in 22 karat. Although that's not that surprising because some other brands, like I think AP does like a 24 karat, right? So, anyways, it doesn't really matter 2 carats left or right. But the point being that they do a very nice movement. They do their finishing is up there with Audemars and Patek Philippe, which is probably why people consider Vacheron, AP, and Patek all in the very similar class. Although some might say Vacheron's higher or AP's higher. Who knows? It's they're all up there. They're all really, really up there. Okay, so that's the movement. I guess now it's time for me to try it on and give you my thoughts. Well, I'm a big fan of Vacheron, although I'm a bigger fan of AP. I actually think AP is it's actually my favorite brand, but I do definitely like Vacheron. Why I'm going to make the case of why would I buy this watch? Well, I'm 6 foot tall, I have a 7.5 inch wrist, and I weigh 200 pounds. And as you can see, this watch looks really good on me. And it would look very good on you. Why do I say it looks good on me? Well, because I believe that this, number one, the size is good. I don't like the watch too big. Like when AP made 44 millimeter offshores, I didn't like them because it was just too big. And but I do like this one, right? So it looks quite nice. It's just the look of it, and also the size of it and the profile. And I like also that it's a brand that is top level. You want to wear a top level. For example, like if you're looking at this video and thinking about buying it, you obviously are looking for a very expensive watch. So you maybe don't want a Breitling or Omega, although those are good watches, but they're not top watchmakers. So you might be considering these three brands, and then the AP and Patek. A lot of people have them. They're very common watches. I mean, common for rich people, that is. But they're not that. They're all exclusive, but they're just much more common. It's much less common to see it overseas, which is why I have to give this one the edge when it comes to that, because it's much more rare to see that. And so you're not going to walk down the street or go to some fancy party and see another guy probably wearing an overseas. It's much less common. Okay, so for that I'm going to give the Vacheron the edge. And also I like that when it comes to finishing the movement, you know, it's just as good, maybe even better, who knows, than those other two watchmakers. And I mean, it's a very nice watch, you know. So, and I think also, look at the price point. Those other two brands that I told you in gold, you're looking at, you know, 100 grand each at minimum. The Patek would be like 150 grand. But, and then the Royal Oak would be like 100 grand or maybe 75,000, something like that. You know, it would be a lot of money. But this one, we're selling it for, at Jazz Time, like in the 30s, even low 30, even 30,000. So for 30,000, you're getting a top watch brand, a sports watch, a gold watch. I mean, it's hard to beat. You know, that's like a Rolex level. And Vacheron, I have to say, sorry, but it's definitely above Rolex in almost every regard. So you really get a bang for the buck, and you know, getting value for your money is a good proposition. So look, if you want to buy this watch, go to jazztime.com. Thanks.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in Jazz Time, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.